project to build that outer road and connection. The property has largely been undeveloped. There is the Special Olympics has been constructed there. But the plans for that area are commercial, and so recognizing that, they actually came in with a rezoning several years ago to get commercial in place on some of the south side after they had acquired the Rickman Center, and getting some of that zoning in place. So it does make sense. It is basically an outer road to the highway, and establishing a very large commercial node in that quadrant of the city would seem to be appropriate. And I'll go to the east side of the city. There's not a whole lot here, Jack.
The only way we're ever going to get anything is annex out there, that's flat. I don't know if that discussion, nobody wants to talk about it, that's the only place we can go.
I might have a little to add, and I'm curious what you'll think. So first, I've only got one box on this screen, and that's this small little area on East McCarty Street, just before you get to Warwick Village. Shown as commercial on the development plan map. It's residential right now. Quite frankly, it's pretty nice residential. I dare say, historic home type area. And so probably need to downgrade that to a low density residential and just keep it there. Warwick Village is a gem. Certainly we want to support that. But the stuff around it, I don't see that growing commercial in that area would be very beneficial. Then continuing down East McCarty Street, basically for the entirety, is just this mix of commercial, industrial, and high-density residential uses and designations on the map. And we looked at it, debated it a bit, and finally came to the conclusion that we didn't want to change anything. We just couldn't. We can't think of any way to really change it. It doesn't seem to have a strong demand pressure on it, so there's nothing real obvious that we would think would go in place out there. The two areas that are probably best primed for growth on the east side is first the intersection of Eastland Drive and Highway 50. Again, there's the GURBs, the grocery store, the gas station, McDonald's, all that stuff. And so there's not a whole lot of land around there for new development. There is some on the other side of the intersection, some undeveloped land. I believe it's a bank or a credit union that's over there, a small veterinary office, but there is some land that's available there. There's also commercial land if you follow the Chateau Woods Road down past Oscars and keep going, it dead ends. But eventually the plan is for that road to continue on and connect outside the city limits to basically Shot Road, and and everything on both sides of that would theoretically be commercial. It's held by a development company out of a Chicago area, I believe, or Wisconsin, just across the border from Chicago. Haven't seen any activity there anytime recently. The only activity we've seen is some redevelopment of the Pizza Hut to a Taco Bell. There are a few tracks in this area that could potentially be developed, but the terrain is very rough. And then, of course, the Walmart intersection, where East McCarty Street and Highway 50 intersect with the dual roundabout, bridge across the road, and the Walmart Supercenter. Again, outside of one outlot that was created with that development where the ATM machine for Central Bank sits. Everything else around there, the terrain is so rough, it's just really hard. Even on the north side of the highway, so across the highway from it, there's some area that might be ideal for commercial, has even been filled in. The fill there is such that it was not necessarily engineered properly, and so it could be a very, very difficult thing for somebody, commercially to build there without, doing some more geotechnical type work. So we didn't really have a whole lot to propose on the east side. continuing on further east, I'll say a few words. So here's the Algoa area. It's billed as the city's industrial park. It's where new industrial development is, the land is there and available. The chamber of, the Jeff City Chamber has participated in, working some of those deals and getting new manufacturers to locate out there. Right now, the designation is not very clean. I'm not really sure how much of this area should be industrial, how much should not. It's probably going to be an ongoing thing, is to see how much industrial development the city can support out there. But there might be an opportunity for residential development out there as well. There's a couple handicaps to that. One is, is that the market? People looking to that area. You're further away from a lot of the goods and services I think that Jefferson City has to offer. But you do have some new shop, a new Walmart that's built out there. There's a lot of jobs out there. There could be some reasons that residential development out there could be very successful. One handicap is sewer service. Sewer service is not in as good of a situation there as perhaps it is in some of the western reaches of the city. Partially due to terrain, but also partially due to politics, I think. With Taos going through and getting voluntary annexation agreements from a number of property owners, the municipal boundary situation between the two is not very clear. And so there would, probably need to be some sort of, I don't know if it's a political solution or just recognition that if one city or the other is going to invest heavily in a sewer system, it needs a certain amount of land for that to make sense. And so trying to figure that out, which the engineers and politicians will probably be better at than the planners necessarily, but it's one of those handicaps that I think could come up to a successful major residential development of the area. Yes.
Did you take into consideration the new port that's going in there? That's right to the right of the wood, right in that area.
Yeah, so I'll point at this slide. Let's see, I think it's right there, one of those two.
That'll change a lot of things after it happens.
I mean, not heavily. It'll have a transportation link to the highway. And so there'll be a road there for sure. Connect, I would assume, to Militia Drive. Outside of that, I don't know what its impacts would be. And so, I don't really know. I don't know how heavily to take that into consideration for the remainder of the area.
It would be a distribution hub, so that takes up a lot of land, a lot of trucks, a lot of movement here and there.
Well, we link up in house or railroad.
Yeah.
And so there's support services to that too.
That's all in the Jefferson City School District, right?
Yes. Should be.
Yes. The boundary line, I know that the Taos goes to the Wardsville School.
Blair Oaks.
Yeah, Blair Oaks. And so I think the boundary line, I'm pointing at a different slide over there, gets a little weird in that area, but so I don't know exactly. To answer your question, no, there's not. We didn't take a major, work any major assumptions or anything on what the impact of the port will be, to that area. But certainly there should be enough property to support basically anything industrial out there. The one thought that raises to my mind is, for the areas that are not industrial, is what is the most appropriate land use out there for things, not only actually primarily on the south side of Highway 5063. What's the ideal land use there? And I would suspect single family residential. So then making that happen could be difficult. So.
The port won't happen. I mean, they can't even find pilots in this area. They can't even get an agreement with the upstream dams that keep the operational channel, so I won't do that.
Yeah. Not holding your breath?
No.
Yeah. I guess Jack, I kind of wanted to present that, and specifically kind of to you, being an East Sider, is, the East Side we've heard it before. It's like, there's not a whole lot happening out there, and the city's not doing a whole lot to make things happen. And some of the things that we've looked at is that there's just not a whole lot of opportunity for things to happen out there. And so because of, going back to a previous presentation that I gave to this body where we had a computer model basically showing us where the residential development is likely to occur, and it was all out west. Well, the major factors that went into that model is the terrain and sewer service. Okay? I mean, there's other factors, but those were the two big ones. Terrain-wise, the terrain out east is very rough, except for one area, and that is this area, right at that intersection of Militia Drive and Highway 50.
Is that subjective to flood though? I mean, the more can get up in there.
Yeah, it's got two different rivers that are crisscrossing the entire area, and then all the hills that are associated with that. And so then sewer service is a little rougher in that area. And I can't really get into the details on that on these slides, but it's a little more complex. But it's the one thing that, if there's a strong desire to try to encourage, more rooftops, and there are more rooftops, bring more business, bring more activity, this might be, really the only place to make it happen. And so
As a long-time East Sider,
yeah,
and we don't want it to happen. We like it the way it is.
you like it the way it is?
Oh,
Okay,
it's quiet.
we'll strike it all and color it
I
white.
can walk across the street with my eyes closed.
Well, I don't know about that, you better speak for yourself, Joe.
Well, most of us on the East Side, we like it that way.
I've been on the east side my whole entire life, too.
Huh?
I said, I've been on the east side my whole entire life. Greene area and now Morrow.
Yeah.
You
But,
know,
We don't need the traffic.
But Morrow and Greenberg came busy already.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's one question I kind of wanted to throw out there. I'm not sure that that we'd be in a position to start, negotiating a boundary here, but, industrial park versus, other probably single-family residential development is there a strong desire one or the other, or do we reserve it all for industrial?
If I was spending money on any of it, it'll be more residential. The industrial model is wrong. I mean, if we get a high-tech service centers or something, that might happen.
Well, we have had, they're very specific to dog food manufacturing, so, but yeah, we have had some
Move
stuff.
out.
Yeah.
Phoenix moved out there in Algoa.
Yeah, exactly, so,
That's a vacant.
What?
Yeah,
Vacant?
right.
yeah.
What's Columbia?
Really?
That was a Chamber of Commerce piece of land that, and bit over backwards.
Yeah, you can fill that for us, Dan.
Because a lot of it got shipped out, so then,
Anyway, that's one thing I wanted to throw out there just as a discussion item and maybe think about. So then my last series of slides deal more with the core downtown area. There it is, Central City. I referenced earlier we wanted to create that specific downtown category to replace the mishmash of different designations that are in place right now. So right now it's just kind of a mishmash of blue and red and gets into gray. So calling it all out as a downtown and then coming up with some specific guidance and recommendations associated with that category. I think that would seem proper that the community holds the downtown in some high regard in trying to address things specifically within that area and granting some flexibility that wouldn't necessarily be available in the other areas of the city. There's a small spot I'll point out because it is a deviation from the South Side plan. Right there. So we're on the basically corner of Dunklin Street and Madison Street. It's where Family Dollar is located. I think I had a problem with their recommendation on that specific location, but they got put forward. It's an adopted component. But that Family Dollar store apparently is one of the highest grossing Family Dollar stores in their network, or something ridiculous like that. And I can understand why. It serves the entire neighborhood. you can walk to it. You know, the parking, I don't think is any strong relation to the amount of business they do. And so keeping it commercial seems appropriate, but we also hear things about, sorry, not talking in the mic. We also hear things about, making sure that grocery stores are available in some of these residential areas. I wouldn't go so far as to call this area a food desert, because there are grocery stores that are not very far away. Food deserts, in my mind, are vast swaths of urban landscape that you have to travel all day, necessarily all day, but a significant distance to get basic food items. I don't think that's the case here. It's not that far to get to a Save-A-Lot, to a Gerb's, or to a Schnucks.
The two stores that were there went out of business. Safeway used to be up at the top of the hill on Madison,
Yep.
and then there was a Apple Market over there, Dunklin in there. They went out of business.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there was, but then I would also